the origin of the cosmos, etc. Another consciousness-raising exercise on the same theme. The Quarterly Review of Biology is a typical scientific journal. It's typical of the journals where scientists publish their research findings, and I put together a little spoof issue of the Quarterly Review of Biology devoted to the interesting question of, did an asteroid kill the dinosaurs? You can't read the papers on the right because the print's too small, so I'm going to put each one up separately. The first paper is an ordinary scientific paper, exactly the sort of thing you'd expect to see in the Quarterly Review of Biology. Iridium layer at KT boundary and potassium-argon dated crater in Yucatan indicate that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. That's a scientific paper. What about this one, though? The President of the Royal Society has been vouchsafed a strong inner conviction that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. Or this one. It has been privately revealed to Professor Huxtane that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. Professor Haldley has been brought up to have total and unquestioning faith that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. Professor Hawkins has promulgated an official dogma binding on all loyal Hawkinsians that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. Professor Huxkins is personally offended by all strident, shrill, and polemical denials that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. The President of the National Academy of Sciences has issued a fatwa against all who deny that an asteroid killed the dinosaurs. I'm going to now run through a few points that people make, criticisms that people make of my book and others of my colleagues. Many of these criticisms actually come from atheists who sort of feel it's bad taste to enter into criticism of religion. I'm an atheist, but I wish to dissociate myself from your shrill, strident, intemperate, intolerant, ranting language. Actually, I like to think that if you look at the language of the God delusion, it's rather less shrill or intemperate than we regularly take in our stride when listening to political commentators, for example, talking about each other, or theatre critics, art critics, book critics. Here are some examples of recent restaurant criticism from London newspapers. It is difficult, if not impossible, to imagine anyone conjuring up a restaurant, even in their sleep, where the food in its mediocrity comes so close to inedible. All things considered, quite the worst restaurant in London, maybe the world, serves horrendous food grudgingly in a room that is a museum to Italian waiters' taste, Kirker 1976. The worst meal I've ever eaten, not by a small margin, I mean the worst, the most unrelievedly awful. What looked like a sea mine in miniature was the most disgusting thing I've ever put in my mouth since I ate earthworms at school. In 1915, the British Member of Parliament Horatio Bottomley recommended that after the war, if by chance you should discover one day in a restaurant you are being served by a German waiter, you will throw the soup in his foul face. If you find yourself sitting at the side of a German clerk, you will spill the ink pot over his foul head. Now that's strident and intolerant, and I should have thought ridiculous and ineffective as rhetoric even in its own time. The literary critic Terry Eagleton, who's one of those who's had a go at me for this, described the distinguished novelist Kingsley Amis as a racist, anti-Semitic bore, a drink-sodden, self-hating reviler of women, gays, and liberals. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that that kind of language is perfectly okay. I'm not criticizing it. This is the ordinary give and take of argumentative discourse. And the opening sentence of chapter 2 of the God Delusion, which is the closest that I come to strident or shrill, is this one. And it really isn't any worse. It's actually rather less so than the ones I've just been giving you. The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction. Jealous and proud of it, a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully. Now, I actually intended that to be funny rather than polemical. My wife, Lala, and I sometimes do readings of my books before public audiences when selling books. And as any performer will tell you, it's a good idea to get a laugh in early, because then you sort of warm the audience up. That's why comedians have warm-up acts to go on before them. And we always use that passage, for the God Delusion, we always use that passage as the warm-up act to amuse the audience. And similarly, this next one, about Our Lady of Fatima. This is also from the God Delusion. Pope John Paul II created more saints than all his predecessors of the past several centuries put together. And he had a special affinity with the Virgin Mary. His polytheistic hankerings were dramatically demonstrated in 1981 when he suffered an assassination attempt in Rome and attributed his survival to intervention by Our Lady of Fatima. A maternal hand guided the bullet. One cannot help wondering why she didn't guide it to miss him altogether. Others might think that the team of surgeons who operated on him for 6 hours deserved at least a share of the credit. But perhaps their hands too were maternally guided. The relevant point is that it wasn't just Our Lady who, in the Pope's opinion, guided the bullet, but specifically Our Lady of Fatima. Presumably Our Lady of Lourdes, Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Medjugorje, Our Lady of Akita, Our Lady of Zaitun, Our Lady of Garabandal, and Our Lady of Knock were busy on other errands at the time. I think that's quite funny too. People feel strongly about their faith, and they're offended if you insult it or laugh at it. Sense of humor is not prominent, to say the least, among those who take offense when you criticize their religion. The late Douglas Adams had a wonderful speech that he made in Cambridge not that long before he died, and I was privileged to hear it. I really recommend looking at it. It's on various websites, including mine. Douglas Adams said, "Religion has certain ideas at the heart of it, which we call sacred or holy or whatever. What it means is, here is an idea or notion that you're not allowed to say anything bad about. You're just not. Why not? Because you're not." I think you recognize the truth of this. I think you recognize that religion has somehow conned all the rest of us into granting it a kind of charmed, privileged status. You can criticize anything else. You can criticize a restaurant. You can criticize a book. You can criticize a play. You can criticize a politician. But you mustn't criticize religion. Well, why not? I am offended by all sorts of things. I'm offended by chewing gum, bubble gum, backwards baseball hats. But so what if I'm offended?